What the fuck is your damage, bro? What the? It's insane.
Hey guys, Bitesize here, and in this video, I'm going to tell you why you absolutely have to try Arcane Mage. Let's get into it. So first up, let's talk about mobility. If you use your kit correctly, you'll be dancing around mechanics and maintaining full DPS like it's no issue at all. As some of you will know, I also play Shadow Priest, and honestly, comparing the two characters, it just feels like I'm playing a different game when I'm on my mage. For starters, we've got either Ice Flows, which allows you to cast a spell whilst moving and has 3 charges, or my personal preference, Shimmer. This is essentially an improved version of Blink, which is castable while casting, and it also gets 2 charges. So those times where you've just started a cast and a ground mechanic magically spawns right under you at the worst time possible, you can run straight out of it with Ice Flows, or blink out of it with Shimmer with no impact on your DPS whatsoever. On top of that, the majority of our damage comes from Arcane Barrage, which is an instant cast ability. We can generate Arcane Charges, the main resource is Arcane, with instant cast abilities like Arcane Explosion and Arcane Orb. We're firing off Arcane Orbs for free in Mythic Plus spec because of the hero talents that we take. So just by doing your normal rotation, you're passively firing out Arcane Orbs. And we also have Slipstream, which makes one of our cooldowns, Evocation, castable while moving, as well as one of our main DPS abilities, Arcane Missiles. Even one of our main cooldowns, Touch of the Magi, is an instant cast. There are just so many options for dealing damage while you're on the move that if you play well, utilizing your entire kit whilst also being prepared in advance for movement and mechanics, you're going to have other DPS hating you out of pure jealousy. And more importantly than that, it honestly just feels insanely fun and really rewarding when you get good at it. Next up, let's talk about defensives and survivability. Something I really didn't expect, but was so pleasantly surprised by, is just how tanky Arcane Mage is. So first of all, versatility just happens to be one of our best stats, and I absolutely love this. So for example, on my 679 eye level mage, when I'm drinking a rank 2 versatility flask, yes, I drink rank 2 flask because I'm cheap, I have just over 20% versatility. So I'm doing 20% more damage from this, but also equally as importantly, it means I'm taking about 10.15% less damage permanently from all sources passively for absolutely nothing other than just stacking one of my best stats. You don't get any kind of damage reduction benefit when you stack crit, haste, or mastery. I wish all of the specs that I played would stack versatility as their main stat. It's absolutely incredible. We also have Prismatic Barrier. Some of you will be thinking, well, all 3 mages get the barrier. This is nothing special, right? But that's where you're wrong. You see, they've all got their own little unique effect. For fire, with Blazing Barrier, melee attacks against you cause the attacker to take some very low fire damage. It's pretty useless, honestly. For frost, melee attacks against you reduce the attacker's movement by 60%, which, again, has some niche uses, but not that useful. Although we do have to mention as well with Ice Barrier that it does seem to absorb around 400k more than the other barriers, which is very nice. But it's still not as good as Arcane. Because in Arcane, with Prismatic Barrier, it reduces magic damage taken by 25% and reduces the duration of harmful magic effects on you by 40%. Consider the amount of PvE encounters, whether it's bosses or trash mobs, where you're being hit by spell damage and having magic dots applied to you. This barrier is an absolute lifesaver, and it makes your mass barrier even more impactful. We've also got Alter Time, where you essentially lock your character's current state in terms of your position and HP, then reactivate the ability to return to that state. So a good example of this is the Motherlode first boss. You can pretty much alter time every single time that the boss does an AoE, which can save your healer a lot of unnecessary healing on you. It's a really useful ability. But I'm not done there. We've also got Greater Invisibility, where not only do you become invisible and untargetable, dropping all threat, but you also take 60% less damage while you're invisible, and for 3 seconds after the invisibility ends. So it's another incredibly good defensive tool, both as an aggro reset and a damage mitigation. But it still doesn't end there, because we've also got Ice Cold, reducing all damage taken by 70% for 6 seconds. Oh, and I almost forgot Mirror Image, where you create 3 copies of your character, and while they're active, you take 20% less damage, with 1 image dissipating whenever you take direct damage. I cannot stress enough how insanely overpowered Mage's toolkit is. Again, comparing this to my Shadow Priest, the tools that I've got to survive on my mage in comparison, it's not even fair. Like, genuinely, it's absurd. There's just so many options when playing a mage, and it all flows and feels like it makes sense. We may not be inherently tanky like a warlock, but trust me, if you get good at your Arcane Mage, you're going to be outliving other DPS in your groups. Next on the list, let's discuss utility, starting with the obvious, Time Warp, or Bloodlust to most of you. This alone is enough to get invited to groups, providing a huge 30% haste buff for all party and raid members for a massive 40 seconds. But what else can we do? Well, we can remove curses, which is really useful in some dungeons and for some Mythic Plus affixes. We can spell steal buffs off of targets, which can not only be really helpful to the group, but also benefit us massively. For example, the Templars in the Priory dungeon, you can spell steal a huge damage buff from them, which not only helps your group out because they're taking less damage, but it also massively buffs your own DPS. We have 2 disrupting abilities, either Dragon's Breath or Supernova, which are a melee range disorient and a range knockup respectively, and Blast Wave, which is a knockback and a slow combined. Having 2 disrupting AoE abilities on fairly short cooldowns is absolutely massive for high Mythic Plus keys, and just another string to the bow of Mage. We've also got roots via Frost Nova, hard crowd control with Polymorph, a 24-second cooldown range interrupt, Slowfall, which sees some niche uses now and again. Oh, and we can also just make portals to pretty much anywhere important in the game as a nice little extra. In fact, I've not even mentioned Arcane Intellect, buffing all party and raid members int by 3%, which makes us essential to raids and Mythic Plus compositions that are spell damage heavy. It's honestly absolutely insane how loaded Mage's kit is. Forget DKs being called the hero class. For me, it's absolutely a mage. But enough about all that really useful stuff. Let's talk about something that actually matters, DPS. So for starters, let's talk about the cooldowns. Your main cooldowns as Arcane are Arcane Surge, a 1.5 minute cooldown, and Touch of the Magi, a 45-second cooldown. So these are pretty low cooldowns regardless, but then you throw in Shifting Power, an ability available to all mages that reduces our cooldowns by a further 12 seconds. So TLDR, we have incredibly short cooldowns, which is nice in general, but it's actually a huge deal in Mythic Plus, because you can pretty much guarantee that pack to pack, any pull, you're going to have some way of doing really good damage. You're going to have something available. You're very rarely going to have moments where you've got absolutely no damage, no cooldowns, and then your tank inevitably does a huge pull, and you just want to turn your computer off because you're doing healer damage. Honestly, having low cooldowns is just a godsend. And speaking of damage, here's the main reason why I believe Arcane is the best DPS in the game. Is it necessarily the highest DPS in terms of overall? No, probably not. It's pretty damn good though still. But in pure AoE, an Unholy DK, Destro Lock, Balanced Druid, that kind of thing, they are going to outdamage you on the overall DPS meters a lot of the time. But we've got something that no one else has, at least not to the level that we have it. Funnel. So what is Funnel? It means that we can use additional mobs in AoE to increase our single target damage on one priority target. Now, there's quite a few interactions that impact this, and I'm not going to go through all of them. But the biggest impact is that running the Mythic Plus build, we can barrage really consistently and really aggressively, which when combined with an abundance of barrage damage increasing talents, all feeding into the main talent Resonance, which makes barrage deal more damage for each target that it hits beyond the main target. In simple terms, the more targets that we have, the more damage our barrage does on our main target. And we're going to be barraging a hell of a lot in Mythic Plus. So how does this end up looking in reality? Well, a bit like this. You're just doing your normal rotation, doing pretty good overall AoE DPS, but at the same time, you are absolutely destroying one target. Your barrages are hitting this target so hard, and this goes beyond just upping your DPS on details. This is genuinely useful damage. Couple of examples: the Hobgoblins in Cinderbrew Meadery, the Extractors in Motherlode, all the mini-bosses in Priory. Every single dungeon has some kind of terrifying priority mobs in trash packs, and while everyone else is doing their AoE spread evenly across all targets, you're making that dungeon easier and quicker by almost single-handedly killing the most important targets. And this isn't only useful on trash. Think about all the bosses that spawn adds or have multiple targets, like the Abomination in Theatre of Pain, for example, or the first boss in Darkflame Cleft. You might get out DPS by the people padding on all the little adds, sure, but you can guarantee that your boss damage is very often going to be more than double everyone else in the group. And this feels amazing. It's so genuinely useful. I've played WoW for a couple of decades now, And I can honestly say as a DPS that I've never felt like I make more of a positive impact as a DPS than I do right now on Arcane Mage. Seriously, ever. And as if all of that wasn't enough, let's talk about the visuals and the audio, because you guessed it, they're fantastic. The shimmering purple barrier around us, the arcane splinters flying round like your dual-wielding needlers in Halo, the huge arcane orbs flying out, AoE arcane missiles looking like a storm of pink torpedoes, combined with the building suspense provided by the audio of Touch of the Magi, which ends in an explosive crescendo. It's all so good that it makes me start talking like I'm an English teacher. But genuinely, it's incredibly satisfying that words can't really do it justice, which is the case for the entire spec, honestly. If you like maining a DPS in WoW and you've not tried Mage or you're unsure about trying Arcane, take it from me, try it for a couple of days, learn it, and I can promise you won't regret it.